Welcome to the Daily Current Affairs by CivicCentre IAS, where we'll try to discuss the top 10 prelims topics from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the PIB from the UPSC CSE Prelims perspective for UPSC CSE 2025. Displayed are the list of topics which we have chosen for today's discussion. Now without any delay, let's get into the discussion. The first article here says that in a groundbreaking step for India's biotechnology sector, Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh today formally launched the first indigenous antibiotic, which is nothing but the Nafithromycin for resistant infections. In this context, let us talk about the Nafithromycin and then we'll see what is antimicrobial resistance. See, it is the India's first indigenously developed antibiotic aimed at tackling antimicrobial resistance. In short, we call it the AMR. Know that it is developed by the Vodcard Pharmaceuticals with support from the BIRAG, which is a unit of the Department of the Biotechnology. Know that the trade name of it is McGrath. If you have to look at some of the key features of it, see, firstly, it treats the community-acquired bacterial pneumonia. Also, it is effective against drug resistance pathogens. Notably, it is the first new antibiotic in its class, which is developed globally in over 30 years. And then lastly, it is 10 times more effective than azithromycin with a 3-day treatment regimen. Now, why is it significant for India? See, India accounts for 23% of the global pneumonia burden. So, this tackles the gut resistance infections, which is a growing global health crisis. Moreover, it strengthens India's position in combating the antimicrobial resistance. Significantly, it is supported by BIRAG under the Department of under the Biotechnology Industry Partnership Program, in short called the BIP. And know that the cost of development is 500 crores over 14 years. But it is awaiting the final approval from the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, in short called the CDSCO. Now, what is this antimicrobial resistance? See, the antimicrobial resistance occurs when the microorganisms like the bacteria, virus, fungi and parasites evolve to resist the effects of antimicrobial drugs, which are nothing but antibiotics, antivirals, antifungals and antiparasites, making them less effective or even ineffective also in some cases. Now, what is this consequence of it? See, AMR or the antimicrobial resistance leads to infections becoming harder to treat, increased disease spread, longer hospital stays, higher medical costs, and lastly, increased mortality. Now, what do you think are the causes for this antimicrobial resistance? Firstly, overprescription of antibiotics and inappropriate use in humans. Secondly, agricultural practices like the use of antibiotics in livestock as growth promoters. And thirdly, prophylactic use in animals without proper veterinary oversight. And lastly, environmental factors like poor disposal of pharmaceutical waste and presence of antibiotics in water and soil due to untreated effluents. The second article of the day says that the World Fisheries Day, which is observed on every November 21st, is a global event that underscores the critical importance of sustainable fisheries and also the need to protect the aquatic ecosystems and the livelihoods for fishing communities. In this context, we shall talk about the World Fisheries Day. See, this World Fisheries Day was established in the year 1997 during the World Forum of Fish Harvesters and Fish Workers meeting in New Delhi. Know that the purpose is to raise awareness about threats like overfishing, habitat destruction and illegal fishing, and also advocacy for the small-scale fishers' rights. Significantly, the theme for 2024 is India's Blue Transformation for strengthening small-scale and sustainable fisheries. Now, if we have to talk about India's role in global fisheries, see, India is the third largest fish producer globally and second largest aquaculture nation, which is after China. Furthermore, it is the world's largest shrimp producer. So, it has a significant domestic impact, which supports the livelihoods of almost 30 million people and also a major contributor to food security and global seafood imports. Now, these are some of the key government initiatives with respect to promotion of fisheries and aquaculture. Then, what about the budget and investment for it? See, for the financial year 2024-25, an allocation of 2,584.50 crore rupees was done, which is a 15% increase compared to earlier. Significantly, the total investment in the sector exceeds 38,572 crore rupees during the years 2014 to 2024. Next article here says that on October 20th of 2024, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi inaugurated 3 new airports under the RCS UDAN scheme in Rewa of Madhya Pradesh, Ambikpur of Chhattisgarh and Saharpur of Uttar Pradesh. In this context, let us talk about UDAN scheme, which is nothing but Uday Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. See, it was launched on October 21st of 2016. Know that the scheme aims to democratize the air travel by improving regional connectivity and making air travel more affordable to the common people. Significantly, over 609 routes are operationalized, connecting states and union territories, with helicopter services and tourism routes also included. But furthermore, it is inspired by the PM Modi's vision of making air travel accessible to all, including those in the remote areas also. Then, moving on to talk about the phases of UDAN. See, firstly, to the UDAN 1.0 during the 2017, 128 routes were awarded and 36 new airports were operationalized. Then the UDAN 2.0 focused on undeserved airports and helipad connectivity. Then UDAN 3.0 introduced tourism routes, seaplanes and northeast connectivity. Then through UDAN 4.0 focus was on hilly areas, islands and helicopter services. Now we have to talk about UDAN 5.0. See, some of the major advancements under UDAN 5.0 are like no distance caps, then priority to operational airports, then reactivation of discontinued routes, and lastly expansion of helicopter and small aircraft connectivity have been made under UDAN 5.0. Notably, it follows a market-driven approach. So the airlines assess the demand and then propose the routes during bidding. Then we have other support mechanisms also, like under the viability gap funding to give financial support for unprofitable routes. Then concessions have also been given for different stakeholders like the airport operators, central government and also the state governments. The next article here says that Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Guyana in 56 years. So he was greeted by the ceremonial welcome and a guard of honor as he arrived at the Georgetown, which is nothing but the capital of Guyana. In this context, we'll talk about Guyana. See, Guyana, officially known as the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, is a sovereign state located on the northern coast of South America. Notably, it is the only English-speaking country on the continent and shares cultural and historical ties with the Anglophone Caribbean. Talking about its location, see, the Guyana is situated on the northern mainland of South America, bordered by Atlantic Ocean on the north, Brazil to the south and southwest, Venezuela to the west, and Suriname to the east. Furthermore, the country spans approximately 214,970 square kilometers, with over 75% of the land mass covered in pristine forests. Now, talking about its political structure, see, Guyana operates as a parliamentary representative democratic republic. Know that the capital of it is in Georgetown. Also, know that Guyana gained independence from United Kingdom on May 26 of 1966. Internationally, Guyana is a member of the Caribbean Community, which is the CARICOM, and the Union of South American Nations, which is the UNASUR. Furthermore, the country has ongoing territorial disputes with Venezuela over the Essequibo region. Now, moving on to the next article, which says that the time running out, negotiators at the United Nations annual climate talks, which is nothing but the COP29, on Wednesday remained mired in the maze of $1 trillion money problem, turning to host Azerbaijan to lead the way to daylight with a promised map to be released in the dark of night. In this context, we'll talk about the Conference of Parties. See, the Conference of Parties, in short called the COP, is an international climate meeting organized annually for the United Nations. Then we have something called the Paris Agreement, which is a legally binding international treaty on climate change. Know that it was adopted by 196 parties at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP21 in Paris of France, under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Then, if we have to talk particularly about the COP29, see, the COP29 was hosted in Baku of Azerbaijan, and it marks a pivotal moment as the country takes on the leadership role in global climate action. Know that the COP29 is investing in a livable planet for all. Furthermore, it focuses on 3 areas, which are firstly, mobilizing the climate finance to support global sustainability efforts. Secondly, advancing technological innovations in renewable energy. And lastly, developing comprehensive strategies for global adaptation to climate vulnerability. The next article here says that the President on Wednesday appointed Justice D. Krishnakumar as the Chief Justice of Manipur High Court following the superannuation of the incumbent of Siddharth Mridul. In this context, we'll talk about the appointment of HC judges and then we'll briefly talk about the collegium system. See, the Article 217 of the Constitution states that the judge of a high court shall be appointed by the President in consultation with the Chief Justice of India and the Governor of the respective state. But in case of the appointment of a judge other than the Chief Justice of the High Court is consulted. Know that the High Court judges are recommended by a collegium comprising the Chief Justice of India and two most senior judges. However, the proposal is initiated by the Chief Justice of the High Court concerned in consultation with the two senior most colleagues. Then the recommendation is sent to the Chief Minister, who then advises the Governor to send the proposal to the Union Law Minister. Note that the Chief Justice of the High Court is appointed as per the policy of having Chief Justices from outside the respective states. Then, if we have to look at the evolution of the collegium system, see the first judge's case of 1981 declared that the primacy of the Chief Justice of India recommendation on judicial appointments and transfers can be refused for cogent reasons. Furthermore, the ruling gave the executive primacy over the judiciary in judicial appointments for the next 12 years. But through the second judge's case of 1993, Supreme Court introduced the collegium system which we are talking about now, holding the consultation really meant concurrence. Also, it added that it was not the CJI's individual opinion, but an institutional opinion formed in consultation with the two senior-most judges in the Supreme Court. Then, in the third judge's case of 1998, Supreme Court on President's reference expanded the collegium to a 5-member body comprising the CJI and 4 of his senior-most colleagues. For example, the transfer of these High Court judges. The next article says that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday proposed 7 key pillars to strengthen ties between India and CARICOM as he held talks with the Caribbean partner countries, focusing on areas such as trade, technology, and tourism, among others. In this context, we'll talk about the CARICOM. See, the CARICOM, which stands for the Caribbean Community, is the oldest surviving integration movement in the developing world. Know that it is an organization of Caribbean countries and dependencies, originally established as the Caribbean Community and Commons Market in the year 1973 by the Treaty of Chagarams. But what about its members? See, it has 15 members and these are the following. Notably, the chairmanship of the community is rotated every 6 months among the member countries' heads. Furthermore, the CARICOM Secretariat is in Georgetown of Guyana, which is the principal administrative organ of the community and is headed by a Secretary General who is the Chief Executive Officer of the community. Then in 2007, CARICOM officially inaugurated the Caribbean Court of Justice, which serves as the final court of appeal for CARICOM members, and it also handles the regional trade disputes. See, the main purposes of it are: firstly, to promote the economic integration and cooperation among its members. Secondly, to ensure that the benefits of integration are equitably shared. And lastly, to coordinate the foreign policy. The next article says that the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United States has offered its technical expertise and knowledge to deal with the impact of climate change on the country's aquaculture and the fishing community engaged with it. In this context, let us talk about the Food and Agriculture Organization. See, it is a specialized agency of the United Nations that leads international efforts to defeat the hunger. Know that it is the oldest permanent specialized agency of the United Nations, established in October of 1945. Significantly, the mandate is to improve nutrition, increase agricultural productivity, raise the standard of living in rural populations, and lastly, contribute to the global economic growth. Also know that the headquarters is in Rome of Italy. See, currently it has 194 member states plus the European Union member organization. Notably, the FAO receives 100% of its funding from its member countries, but in case of scarcity or conflict, the FAO usually does not intervene directly with the food relief operations. Notably, within the United Nations system itself, these activities are generally entrusted with the World Food Programme. Furthermore, the FAO coordinates the efforts of the governments and technical agencies in programs for developing agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and land and water resources. If we look at the some of the other functions of it, firstly, it carried out research, then it provides technical assistance on projects in individual countries, and also it operates educational programs through seminars and training centers. Furthermore, it maintains information and support services, including keeping the statistics on the world production, trade, and consumption of agricultural commodities. And lastly, it publishes a number of periodicals, yearbooks, and research bulletins. See, so these are the reports published by the FAO. The next article says that the world is facing an unprecedented planetary crisis with nearly half of the world's children, which is about 1 billion, living in the countries that face high risk of climate and environmental hazards, said the UNICEF State of the World's Children Report 2024. In this context, we'll talk about the UNICEF first and then briefly look at the highlights of the report. See, the United Nations Children Fund, in short called the UNICEF, is a special program of the United Nations devoted to aiding national efforts to improve the health, nutrition, education, and general welfare of children. Know that the UNICEF was created in the year 1946 as the International Children's Emergency Fund by United Nations Relief Rehabilitation Administration to help the children affected by the World War II. Notably, it became a permanent part of the United Nations in the year 1953. But notably, also know that its headquarters is in New York City. Significantly, UNICEF is guided by Convention on the Rights of the Child of 1989, and furthermore, it strives to establish children's rights as enduring ethical principles and international standards of behavior towards children. Now, if we have to talk about the UNICEF in the Indian context, see, UNICEF began its work in India in 1949 with 3 staff members and an established office in Delhi for 3 years later. Know that the nodal ministry for it is the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Now, talking about the UNICEF State of the World's Children Report 2024, see, it highlights the growing risks of children facing due to climate change, environmental degradation, and technological advances. So, firstly, know that nearly 1 billion children live in high risk areas due to climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. Furthermore, these issues harm children's health, including respiratory problems from air pollution, increased diseases from rising temperatures, and food and water insecurity. Then, by the year 2050, the global child population will stabilize at 2.3 billion, with growth concentrated in South Asia and Africa, which are already struggling with climate risks and limited infrastructure. Furthermore, the advances in AI, neurotechnology, and renewable energy could improve children's lives, but digital access is unequal, which means 95% of the people in high-income countries are online compared to 26% in the low-income regions. Hence, this digital divide worsens with the existing inequalities. The last article of the day says that the other satellites, after satellites and launch vehicles, the Indian National Space Promotion Authorization Center, in short called the INSPACE, which is the central agency for regulating and promoting the private sector, is looking at ways for entry of private players in ground segments, according to a consultation document prepared by it. In this context, we'll talk about the Indian National Space Promotion Authorization Center. In short, we call it the INSPACE. See, it is a single window, independent, nodal agency that functions as an autonomous agency in the Department of Space. Know that it is formed following the space sector reforms to enable and facilitate the participation of private players. Significantly, the InSpace is responsible to promote, enable, authorize, and supervise various space activities of non-governmental entities, including, firstly, building launch vehicles and satellites and providing space-based services. Secondly, sharing the space infrastructure and premises under the control of DOS or ISRO. And lastly, establishing of new space infrastructure and facilities. Furthermore, the agency acts as an interface between the ISRO and non-governmental entities, and it also assesses how to utilize India's space resources better and increase the space-based activities. Also, it assesses the needs and demands of private players, including the educational and research institutions, and explores ways to accommodate these requirements in consultation with ISRO. Know that the headquarters is in Bhopal of Ahmedabad. So, in this video, we have discussed 10 topics from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the PIB. For the UPSC CSE Prelims 2024-25, Know that the video is released by 10 a.m. every day, and the PDF notes of the same 10 articles is attached or pinned in the comment section for your reference. Thank you, and we'll be back again with another video tomorrow.